So in last lecture we have studied what is absorption of water, then role of water in plant life, path of water absorption, and just started with mechanism of water absorption. According to number of plant physiologists, the absorption of water in plants takes place by means of two different methods. One that is the active absorption and second one is a passive absorption. We have studied the one theory of active absorption, that is osmotic theory of water absorption, and the second theory that we have to study to explain the active absorption of water is non-osmotic theory of water absorption or non-osmotic absorption of water. Now this non-osmotic absorption of water theory was proposed by two different plant physiologists. One that is Hyman in 1951 and second one is Kramers in 1959. These two plant physiologists are of opinion that the absorption of water is due to non-osmotic way, and therefore according to this theory, water is moving from soil to root hair, and from root hair it enters into cortical cells, and from cortical cells through endodermis it directly get pumped in xylem strand. So this movement of water is no doubt against the concentration gradient. Here, according to the previous workers who supported the osmotic absorption of water, holds view that the movement of water is due to the osmotic concentration. But this theory supports view that this absorption of water from soil to root hair to cortical cells, from cortical cells into the endodermis, and through the endodermis it get moved in a xylem strand. So this movement is against the concentration gradient, that is the concentration gradient is not always in a direction as assumed by the osmotic absorption theory, and here such type of accelerated movement of water requires a large amount of energy, and that energy required for this movement of water against the concentration gradient is usually liberated by the ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate, which is available in a root cells in the process of respiration. Now, this type of active absorption of water is based on the principle of osmosis or osmotic pressure, and therefore this is called as a non-osmotic absorption of water. Now this theory got some practical evidences, or you can say it as a merits of this non-osmotic theory. The first merit or evidence in support of this theory is there is a close relationship between the absorption of water absorption and rate of respiration in roots of plants. If anybody retarded this respiration in a root by certain treatments like treatment of KCN, the KCN retards the root cells respiration or respiratory activity, and under such conditions the rate of water absorption get inhibited or get reduced. Then second evidence or merit which supports the non-osmotic theory is all the factors that affect the respiration, factors which affect the respiration also affects the absorption of water. So here water absorption and root cell respiration are closely linked with each other, and as a result of which the merit of this or practical evidence for this theory comes from this observation of plant physiologists that most of the factors that affect the respiration also affects the water absorption. Then the third and important evidence is water absorption is also influenced by auxins. So these observations, practical observations, are strongly supporting the non-osmotic absorption of water, the theory proposed by Thyman in 1951 and Kramers in 1959 against the concentration gradient and at the cost of energy released from the ATP molecules that are synthesized in the process of respiration of root cells. Then the second method of water absorption or second mechanism of water absorption is a passive absorption of water. Here in this mechanism of passive water absorption, root cells are always inactive. They are always inactive, or you can say they are not involved directly in a absorption of water. But these root cells during absorption of water remains passive. So they are not actively participating in the process of water absorption, but they remain passive. And here, according to this passive absorption of water absorption theory, the force that is developed for this absorption of water is developed in the top of plants, especially in the leaves. If you observe the mechanism, these are the roots which are connected to the stem, and ultimately the leaves are there. So according to this passive absorption of water, the water molecules present in the soil, they are absorbed first by the root hairs, ultimately the root, and then from root to stem, and then it is brought to the leaves. But during this absorption, here the force that is developed here in a leaf of plant body. So here this theory, which holds the view that this passive absorption of water is simply due to the force that is developed in leaf, and during this entire absorption of water process, the root cells remains passive, or they are not involved actively in this phenomenon or in this process of absorption of water, and therefore this is called as a passive absorption of water. Now this theory was strongly supported by many practical evidences, including the work of eminent plant physiologist Kramers, who observed it in 1937, also strongly supported this view or this theory. Now here, according to this theory, the force that is developed in a leaf is simply due to the stomatal transpiration. That means a large amount of water gets transpired through the stomata, and that transpired water through the leaves creates a tension on the xylem strand. So from stomata, the water gets lost in the form of water vapors. So the stomatal cell surrounding mesophyll cells are there, so that tension is usually exerted on the mesophyll cell, from mesophyll cell to the xylem vessels that are present in this vein, ultimately to the midrib, and from midrib to the xylem strand present in the stem. So whatever the stomatal transpiration creates a tension remains continued through a water column, and ultimately the tension is brought to the root or root hair region, and thus the force developed by the stomatal transpiration usually absorbs water through the root hairs without wasting any energy or without utilization of any energy in the form of ATP, but simply due to the force that is developed at the top of the plant body in the leaves through the stomatal transpiration. So here this root hair simply acts as a path or channel through which this water column is developed from soil to the root, from root to the xylem strand that is present in the stem, ultimately to the leaf, and from this leaf to the stomatal region. Thus, the whole process of water absorption here in this case is due to this force and not due to the activity of root cells, which remains inactive, and therefore this process is called as a passive absorption of water. Now this passive absorption of water absorption also has certain evidences or merits. The first practical evidence or merit which strongly supports this passive absorption of water is a rate of water absorption and rate of transpiration in plants are closely interlinked. So, there is a clear-cut linkage between the rate of transpiration, that is amount of water lost through the leaves, and the amount of water absorbed by the plants through the root system, where these roots remains passive and not active. Then the second practical evidence again for this passive absorption is that the rate of absorption is exactly or nearly equal to the rate of transpiration. लिंक अपन पहिला मेरिट जे पाहिलं, first merit in which we said that these two rates, that is the rate of absorption and rate of transpiration, are closely interlinked. Then furthermore, the rate of absorption of water is almost equal to the rate of transpiration. So rate of absorption is almost equal to the rate of transpiration. This is a very important practical evidence, or this is a very important merit of this passive absorption of water. And the third practical evidence for this passive absorption of water is the water is absorbed against the concentration gradient, and this is simply due to the transpiration pool. The pores that developed by this stomatal transpiration in a leaf is a pulling water or absorbing water through the roots, and this process is against the concentration gradient, and this is commonly called as transpiration pull or transpiration force also. So whatever may be the terminology, this transpiration pull or transpiration force is responsible for the absorption of water. Then the fourth important practical evidence which we can observe even in a laboratory very easily is a absorption of water takes place without roots. Without roots. So according to the active absorption theory, the roots absorb water, and that absorbed water is then shifted, or it is conducted to the leaves. But in absence of root, if you take a twig, cut twig without roots and keep in a container of water, that twig without roots has capacity to absorb enormous amount of water, and in such cases, in absence of roots, here the absorption of water takes place only due to the transpiration pores that is developed in the leaves of that twig, which is kept in a water containing or water containers. So this is about the mechanism of water absorption, which takes place either by means of active absorption. For active absorption, there are two different theories. One that is the osmotic theory, second one is the non-osmotic theory, whereas the most accepted theory for the mechanism of absorption is a passive absorption of water, and this passive absorption of water indicates that the pores that is responsible for the absorption of water is developed in the roots due to the stomatal transpiration, and therefore this stomatal transpiration, in which large amount of water get lost, and it creates a continuous column of water from the stomata to the mesopyle, from mesopyle to the xylem strand of leaf, stem, and ultimately to the root, and it remains continuous with the soil water that is present around this root system. So this is about the mechanism of water absorption.